Nevertheless, the current integration era is fundamentally different. The removal of inter-country barriers was replaced by a massive shift of competencies from individual member states to the European Union's commanding heights in Brussels. That's the crucial point. By the radical transition from intergovernmentalism to supranationalism, by the intentional and carefully organized weakening of the meaning and cohesion of the original building blocks of the European integration of, in the past, sovereign European countries. It was replaced by an overall wide-ranging shift towards European governance and what is most dangerous, by large-scale centralization, excessive bureaucratic regulation, unnecessary standardization and harmonization of the whole continent. Europe doesn't need it. For centuries, spontaneously evolving, highly heterogeneous European continent flourished in the past due to its diversity, to its non-uniformity, and to the healthy and productive competition among countries. This changed when Europe became unified and artificially made uniform by a centrally organized governance and legislation. It led to the current very disappointing economic outcomes and to what is called a democratic deficit, or a lack of democratic accountability. I call it post-democracy. The present day institutional uniformity in Europe turned into a straitjacket, which keeps blocking all kinds of positive human activities. The most important step in this process was the establishment of the European Monetary Union and the introduction of one currency in a group of originally 12, now 17 countries that do not form what the economists call an optimal currency area. The undergoing Eurozone sovereign debt crisis is an inevitable consequence of one currency, one exchange rate, and one interest rate for countries with very diverse economic parameters. Yesterday I spoke here somewhere and answering a question, and I said, can you imagine that instead of your NAFTA, we would try to introduce a common currency into the 3 NAFTA member countries, Canada, United States of America, and create one special currency which should be appropriate for all these 3 totally different economic entities together. This is exactly what happened unnecessarily in Europe. The political decision, and it was a strictly and exclusively political decision, to introduce this arrangement was taken without almost any attention being paid to the existing economic fundamentals. The European politicians and their economists should have known that non-optimal, which means wrongly constructed monetary unions, are costly and do not last long. Such arrangements may be hypothetically saved by a high degree of solidarity among their members. But there is no, and there can't be any truly authentic feeling of solidarity in Europe, which exists in America, and which existed, for example, in Germany 20 years ago, after its unification at the beginning of the 1990s. Such solidarity does not exist in Europe. And there is no, from heavens falling, large volume of funds in the hands of the supranational political authority to compensate the countries which are, because of their economic parameters, the victims of such an arrangement. When I say the victims, I am the one. It's very popular now in Europe and all over the world to blame Greece, which is something I never do. Greece is the victim of such an arrangement. And Greece is punished by being forced to stay there. Of course, it would be much better for Greece to leave the Eurozone, which is almost not allowed, impossible, and so on. So I wanted to say that there is no solidarity, sufficient solidarity, and there are no amounts of money just existing available for paying the countries which became the victims of this arrangement. As I see it, there is no imminent solution to the Eurozone sovereign debt trap. There are only unpleasant consequences. Serious short-term economic and budgetary problems in most of its countries, and long-term stagnation of the whole continent. Some Europeans, especially the politicians, dream about the acceleration of economic growth. However, it is difficult, if not impossible, to find any reason for such a magic acceleration growth to occur in Europe. On the contrary, most EU countries must make fiscal cuts, not fiscal expansions, and not only in the short term, but at least in the medium term as well.